information. So whoever's writing the documents or writing up the fact sheet that then you hand to a congressman, those are the people that really dictate how the direction a country goes in, because they control the flow of information to these people. So it's a very diabolical system that has kind of gradually been put into place over the years. So it's really, who are the people that are feeding them this? And my gut reaction says it's we live in a corporate dictatorship. Most of your major companies today that own pretty much everything all have subsidiary companies or directly finance the Defense Department and are involved in defense. GE, all these other companies like that. So it's in their best interest that you have a lockdown society, because that's a society that then all they do is live in fear and consume. And we are trained as capitalists to consume when we get scared, and that's what corporations need and want.
Tyrell, has your television show, Conspiracy Theory, changed your mind or views on things, or did you always have that perspective?
Well, growing up with my father, I think I learned about the JFK assassination and then the mysterious forces that were kind of behind that have now been proven to be true. Learning about that at a young age kind of opened my mind to it. But yeah, in the last 3 to 4 years working on this show, I couldn't believe the amount of potential conspiracies or plots out there, ranging from a wide variety of different subjects. So yeah, it has definitely opened my eyes to a lot more, a lot bigger and broader subjects that I never quite dabbled into before. But I've always kind of tried to keep an open mind and read between the lines and news stories and look for as much information as I possibly could on a subject before making a decision of what I believed and what I didn't believe.
I look now for who benefits, and generally I'm right on when you start looking that way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You follow the money. You look at something and say, okay, well, what is the direct benefit? I believe very strongly that we are being pushed hard into going to war with Iran. And I think that if you look at the dominoes, you say, okay, I think the Occupy movements and even the early form of the Tea Party before it was hijacked, I think that generally put kind of a fear in the power structure of how this country is controlled. And so when you have so that an autonomous movement like that, where all of a sudden people are rising up, and the CIA is designed to basically test the waters, both in foreign countries and also our own country, to kind of get a judge of where the populace is sitting. And I think they see that through the economic depression and things like that that our populace is a powder keg right now. There's a lot of people that are waking up to the corruption and the manipulation that's happening in their lives and in the indentured servitude that they live under, and they're really rising up and wanting to change that and throw that yoke off and throw that power, the people in power out. And I think that scares the hell out of them. And I think things like the NDAA and things like SOPA are direct results of that fear, that we need to get things in place in order to quell a potential rebellion that would overthrow us.
And something, Terrell, reinforcing what you're describing as a bigger picture that may have a war with Iran or some other kind of military project in mind behind all this. It was Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont. He was one of only 13 members of the Senate who voted against the NDAA and spoke out against it with great passion before and after. But he pointed out that this NDAA continues to authorize, and this is a quote, heavy spending on defense despite the end of the 9-year-old war in Iraq, and are trying to wind down some of our defense budget. And that leaves open again. There are several tracks going here that seem to be contradictory, and as if a smokescreen is covering a lot of possible back channel material through this NDAA that was signed so almost under the radar on New Year's Eve.
Well, look, in the NDAA bill, they also snuck in some pretty violent sanctions against the Central Bank of Iran in that bill as well, that kind of forces Iran's hand to retaliate back against us, boxing that country in a corner, so whether through a false flag attack or whatever, they'll perpetuate that attack. And if you look at the populace right now and how, if it's true that they're ready to rise up because of, the being awakened to what's going on, and then no one's going to get behind the war right now. We're too economically depressed to do that. Most people don't want any more war right now. Well, in order to successfully execute that war, you need to have in place the ability to essentially label the protesters against that war, the people against it, as terrorists and enemies of the state, and then send them off to these FEMA camps if necessary.
And Tyrell, do you think there's also something bigger afoot, far beyond just this, that they think could happen or that they may manipulate, where they need this kind of a law in place?
Oh, I think so. I mean, look, we didn't really recover from what happened with the banking system, and if the credit system were to suddenly fall, much like the banks did, or something like that, I mean, I think we're on it. I think if they're looking down the line saying, we have a potential water crisis in the next 50 years where we're going to run out of fresh water, we have many potential, crises within, fresh water, natural ground soil, food shortages, things of that nature. They look at that and they say, okay, would these things cause us to lose power? Would these things cause a rebellion? Because really the NDAA is about, claims to be about fighting terrorism. But when I read it, to me it says, well, this is direct thing of why else do you bring a military on your own shore? Well, the military is there to control your populace. Well, why do you need to control a populace? For fear of rebellion and fear of, and that kind of thing. And so that's where I see it going. So there's many crises on the horizon that they could see that we're not aware of. That they could say, oh, you know what, we need to have the powers in place to be able to control that rebellion or uprising.
Linda, as an investigative reporter, I mean, are you incensed by the fact that the mainstream media just doesn't cover these kinds of stories on a regular basis?
Well, it raises the issue about who is controlling the corporate media today that wants everyone to look the other way. And this gets into Jim Marrs territory that if you take textbook academic definitions of fascism, it is when the government and the corporate join together and they are what rules and directs and controls the money and power of a nation. And I would say that in 2012, we are looking at a United States in which the corporate power and the government power are joined at the hip, and that decisions and strategies are being made, whether it is at a media, business level, or at the Pentagon level, that don't have anything to do with you and me. They have to do with the power structures and sustaining their power and their money and agendas that are not in our favor. So when you look at what David Simmons was saying, that and I have encountered the same thing, a resistance to discuss this absolutely critical new statute that I think needs to be overturned. Congress needs to rescind it. Courts need to throw it out. It is a direct threat to everything that is the Constitution of the United States. But even finding people who were willing to talk about it was difficult. And that says that something is afoot in the corporate government power that is trying to reduce dissent on this terrible NDAA.
I think so, too. Tyrell, what is new for you? What are you going to do? What's the future hold for you?
Well, for me, I might do a little more work with Alex Jones. We have the new season coming out, hopefully in the next few months here, of Conspiracy Theory Season 3, working with Sean Stone, son of Oliver Stone. He's also a co-host on the show, along with June Sarpong and Jesse, and we have our next slate of shows coming out. And also it's just, continuing to try to be that ugly word, an artist, working in the corporate power structure of Hollywood. And speaking to what you said about the media, the media is only controlled by about 3 different corporations.
Right.
And as I was saying earlier, those 3 corporations, advertising controls the media. Who advertises on what channel? That's where we get our money. And if most of our advertisers are in some way, being that the power structure of corporate, there's not like 1,000 corporations out. I mean, it's very few corporations own a lot of other corporations. It's if you really trace it, it's a Christmas tree effect. Those corporations control what's on your media because they're the ones who are spending the money to dictate what is advertised on the shows that you see. And that's where we get our money to make our TV shows or our films. And, they will definitely kind of manipulate the media in that way by, well, we're going to move money over here to fund this show, or we're not.
And we've seen that happen time and time again.
Yeah, we've been very lucky with our TV show that we've been on the air for as long as we have. I think that we kind of snuck in the back door. I don't think they were kind of quite paying attention, and we were able to get on the air. But I have yet to really, apart from last year when they pulled the police state episode, that's the one interesting thing that happened, and that wasn't directly a network thing. We were in the middle of the season when that happened, so we weren't really able to dig into it and find out what exactly happened and why. And then they renewed us for another season, so it was like, okay, well, they let us go. They didn't come down and say you can't do anything. But it was interesting. It was an interesting experience.
Oh, super. Well, look, continued success to you, Tyrell. Give your father our highest regards, will you?
I most definitely will, and I know he has another book coming out this summer, and so look for that. And he, he'll continue the good fight.
Okay, we'll keep in touch. Thank you so very much. Linda, as we move ahead, Gerald Celente is going to join us next half hour, and he's a great individual. Got burned by the MF Global Fund, over $1 million, I think.
Tragic.
Gone. We're going to find out a little bit on if he's going to get it back or not.
The Corzine belongs, where, in the 9th level of.
Yeah, it truly does. What's new with you these days?
Well, let's see. I'm working hard on Earth Files, my news website. I'm getting ready to go to the 2012 Los Angeles 10th Annual Conscious Life Expo, where you're going to do a panel. I'm going to be doing a presentation on the growing evidence of advanced, not agriculture, but advanced technology and civilizations at least 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. Michael
Cremo was right, wasn't he?
Yes.
That's exciting. I like it. You love your work. You're still traveling a lot?
Yes. You can't do this work and be in depth if you don't get out into the field and talk with people.
No, you really can't. Stay with us. Linda Moulton Howe, our special co-host tonight, as we investigate the NDAA, which is the National Defense Authorization Act. It's passed every year. It's the budget for the Department of Defense. But this year, they leaked in something very interesting, which allows them to empower the armed forces to engage in civilian law enforcement to selectively suspend due process, and that chops up a lot of constitutional rights. Gerald Celente next on Coast to Coast AM. Well, it's time for the Coast to Coast merchandise blowout extravaganza for you. Just go to coasttocoastam.com. Click the store link at the bottom of the homepage. We are moving out all the stuff, the shirts, the caps, the drinkware, so much more when you go to coasttocoastam.com and receive 25% off any order. Enter the coupon code C2C25 and click Activate. And my pleasure to introduce, of course, with us, Gerald Celente, Linda Moulton Howe with me tonight. Gerald, of course, the founder, director of the Trends Research Institute, spot on, today's #1 trend analyst. He regularly provides business and industry with customized presentations and very commissioned research studies in more than 300 trend categories. Here he is back on Coast to Coast, Gerald Celente, one of our favorites. Gerald, how are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me back, George.
My pleasure. Now, can you give us an update of what's going on with your situation with MF Global? A lot of people have emailed me. They're concerned. Where do you stand there now?
So far, I've gotten 70% back, and it's doubtful whether or not we're going to get the other 30 back, but there are a lot of lawsuits now in the works. And what's really disgusting about all of this, George, is that any one of us, anybody listening, yourself, me, the most minor infraction that we commit, boy, the strong arm of the law really comes down on us. But not on the Honorable John Corzine, the guy who brought MF Global down.
Right. And doesn't know what happened to the money. Has no idea.
I can't find $1.6 billion,
If I lose $20, Gerald, I go nuts trying to find out where it is, and I generally find it. Unbelievable. Anyways, Linda Moulton Howe's here. Linda, say hello to Gerald Celente.
It's great to say Happy New Year to you and to learn that you are getting some of that Corzine